Hello, I'm John Shepherd, and in this video I'm going to talk to you about how you can maintain, develop and even boost speed, power and strength with EMS, that's electromuscular stimulation. EMS could be a great way to maintain and develop and improve upon speed, strength and power at this current time when we're not able to get out and get to the gym, for example. EMS works by creating an involuntary muscular contraction, so the brain does not have to send signals through to the motor units in order to trigger the muscles to contract. That's one of the biggest benefits of EMS. The Soviets, as with most things sports science, were using EMS in the 1950s and 60s. Bringing it more up to date, in the 1980s, Charlie Francis, who learnt from the Soviets to some extent, also used it extensively with his athletes. Francis, of course, was the Canadian coach who infamously coached Ben Johnson to Olympic glory in Seoul and then ignominy a few days later when Johnson failed a drugs test. However, in many ways, Francis was in advance of his contemporary sprint training peers, and he was a big advocate of EMS. Plus, one needs to account for the fact that many other athletes in that Seoul 100 metre final had or were later discovered to have taken drugs, so perhaps he should be seen in a more positive light. And indeed, many of Charlie Francis's training theories are still being used by sprint coaches today. This is what Charlie Francis had to say about his use of EMS back in the 80s. My own results have been so favourable that I am not interested in debating whether or not EMS works, but rather in optimising the use of EMS in the training of elite athletes. Like many of you watching this video or finding out about EMS for the first time, I was a little bit sceptical potentially about how it could be used and whether or not it actually worked. The more I looked into it, the more I discovered contemporary research that indicates that it does. For example, I've got some here from the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research, which indicates with elite performers, vertical jump height improvements of 25%, counter movement jump improvements of 19.2%, drop jump improvement by 12%, and sprint speed improvements of 4.8%. And there's a lot of other research that indicates such improvements. Francis, trading on Soviet research that was done previously, came up with a 10 seconds on, 50 seconds off protocol for most of the body's major muscle groups, including the foot, which is a subject that I will go into in another video. Much contemporary research also advocates a similar 10 seconds on, 50 seconds off protocol. And indeed, that's the protocol that's been recommended by a device that I'm currently trialling, the Neurika MyTouch. Another of the startling revelations about EMS is the fact that it doesn't take that many sessions to get those gains that I've been talking about. We're looking at 3 to 6 weeks of 3 to 4 sessions a week. So how are those gains achieved? Well, I talked about involuntary muscular contractions and the ability of EMS to stimulate those contractions. Well, perhaps fundamental to that are two key aspects. One, that EMS can switch on the largest bundles of fast twitch muscle fibre and the motor units that recruit them without the athlete having to put in a lot of neural effort, energy to do so. And secondly, they improve motor coordination, motor unit coordination, so that the athlete automatically, without conscious effort, becomes better at turning on their muscle fibres, the motor units, to produce greater amounts of speed and power and force development. Yet another benefit of EMS training is the fact that there's virtually no drain on the central nervous system. If you're going to perform a maximum lift in the weights room, to get yourself in the mood to be able to do that, you're going to have to recruit a lot of neural energy to fire up your muscle fibres, your fast twitch muscle fibres. Whereas with EMS, put the electrodes onto the various muscle groups and the muscles will automatically be recruiting the biggest bundles of fast twitch muscle fibre. Under normal circumstances, motor units are recruited on the size principle. That means that the smallest motor units of muscle fibre are initially recruited and then more neural energy is required to stimulate the larger ones. EMS bypasses the asynchronistic recruitment of muscle fibre and basically straight away targets the biggest bundles of fast twitch muscle fibre and their motor units. So you're going straight to those muscle fibres, the fast twitch type 2Bs that you need for increased speed, power and strength. As I mentioned earlier, the 10-second on, 50-second off protocol seems to be the one that's gained the most credence, and in terms of intensity it needs to be as high as you can tolerate for those 10 seconds. It does require some period of getting used to it. So as with any training modality, you need to start at lower intensities and build up. I've tried it with the Neuroka MyTouch and you do get used to it. There are also certain muscle groups that you're a little bit more, shall we say, on the back foot about when putting the EMS electrodes into position. For example, the hamstrings and back and abdominals, should you want to work those areas. However, for the quads and the calves, I found it really quite tolerable and you do get used to it after a couple of sessions. Francis recommended that his athletes did EMS sessions as the final part of their training day and that they performed a warm-up beforehand. With the MyTouch also, we've also got a number of other potentialities from it. You've got a pain management function and also a sports massage function. And in another video in the Sports Tech on Test series, I'll go into more detail about the specifics of that particular device. As usual, thanks for watching and good luck with your training. EMS could be a great way to maintain and develop and improve upon speed, strength and power at this current time when we're not able to get out and get to the gym, for example. The research that I've discovered and my own experiences do indicate that is a training modality that is well worth using, and should you have the opportunity to get your hands on the device, it could well be worth it.